Abortion. As far as well-known political issues go, I think this is one of the more morally complicated ones. Here my goal is to present to you what I think are the three best arguments for legalized abortion. Do note that my decision to entitle this video Legalized Abortion was very much intentional. I do not aim to defend the morality of abortion itself. I aim to defend the morality of legalizing it as a kind of lesser evil. In an ideal society, abortion would not need to occur, at least not very often. We do not live in an ideal society. Sex education and widely available contraception are some good ways we can cut down on the rate of abortions. My aim here, however, is not to talk about how to cut down on the number of abortions, but instead to find the moral answer to the issue that is the legality of abortion. So let's begin with the three arguments. These arguments do not need to be used together, and I believe any of them can effectively be used on their own as a justification of legalized abortion. Argument 1. The veil of ignorance argument. The veil of ignorance is an idea that we should structure our society based around what we would want if we could be any of its members. We do not know who we would be, our individual bias is eliminated. Therefore, we should create a society that leads to the best outcomes for all, as the veil of ignorance means we ought to create a society based on the idea that we could be anyone within it. So how does this work for abortion? Who would you rather be, a fetus that gets aborted, or someone forced to carry, birth, and have a child against their will? Criminalizing abortion obviously seeks to discourage it, but if we think the sacrifice of the fetus is a lesser evil to the forcing of someone to have a child, then we must not criminalize this act. We would be doing a moral wrong by encouraging what we view as the worst option through the power of the law. This argument can get complicated. Someone might decide they would rather be a woman forced to have a child than an aborted fetus. I know what I would choose, but to a degree, perhaps it is merely a subjective preference. Still, I think most people would agree they would rather be aborted than forced to have a child against their will. In other words, it is more immoral to criminalize abortion than to allow it to exist. Another criticism could be the idea that we only choose the fetus as a preference because we are no longer fetuses, meaning the idea of being an aborted fetus is less real to us than the idea of having to have a child. This inclines us to choose the fetus as the lesser evil. It simply seems less threatening as it is more distant from our reality. My counter-argument to this would be that I am not someone with the organs needed to carry a child. Therefore, both options are distant and alien from my individual reality, meaning I am unlikely to be biased to any significant extent by my personal identity. I am distant from both options, allowing me to weigh them more evenly from afar to come to a conclusion. Still, I think this is a rather good argument, and it certainly works for me, and is central to the reasoning behind my pro-choice position. A separate argument could occur about the validity of using the veil of ignorance as a moral system for structuring our society. Personally, I quite like it, as it falls nicely in line with the ideas of reciprocal morality, central to my moral system. Now for argument 2. Argument 2. Bodily autonomy. Argument 2 concerns the rights of the individual versus the power of the state. The idea that it is an overreach of government power to interfere with bodily autonomy in all but the most extreme cases can be seen as a good justification of legalized abortion. The fetus relies on the person carrying it, and its right to life therefore comes second to the bodily autonomy of the individual carrying it. It could be argued that bodily autonomy should always come after the right to life. In some extreme examples, I may be inclined to agree, but the logical implications of this idea could be pretty authoritarian. If someone needs an organ transplant or blood transfusion, is it okay to harvest organs and blood from people against their will to save that person? Seems like a very dangerous and authoritarian logical implication to me. The anti-abortion advocate will likely try to come up with some reasons that a fetus's life comes before the individual's right to bodily autonomy. Still, I don't think this is an adequate justification of such a degree of authoritarianism, and government overreach into the rights of the individual. Now we come to our final of the three arguments. Argument 3, a lesser evil. This argument, perhaps even more so than the others, is for people who think abortion is immoral and bad. Sometimes criminalization is not the answer to immorality. Legalization could be a lesser evil, or criminalization could represent an overreach of government power, as has been seen in the previous arguments. This argument is simple. Criminalizing abortion doesn't stop abortions to the extent needed to justify criminalization. Under criminalization, many abortions still occur, but they are far more hazardous, and much more harm is caused than is necessary. A similar point can be raised over other social issues, such as drug use. Sometimes legalization is just better. If the immorality is going to happen a lot anyway, legalization can sometimes be the answer. Rather than dangerous abortions, people can get safe, legal abortions. This is a lesser evil. Abortion still happens when it is illegal, and not just a little bit either. It happens a lot. Criminalization doesn't seem to be an effective way of stopping abortion, and just makes abortion more dangerous. It just leads to more pain, and for what? So the spite-filled anti-abortion people can feel like they got justice when all they are doing is making things worse? They aren't stopping abortion, they are causing more suffering and misery than is necessary. Legal abortion is a lesser evil. Criminalization isn't the solution. Sometimes things are a bit more complex than just making stuff illegal. As I mentioned earlier, sex education, readily available contraception, and the empowerment of women can all go a long way towards limiting the number of abortions. Some studies even indicate countries that criminalize abortions have higher abortion rates. It feels like criminalizing abortion is often more about spite and feeling like you are punishing bad people than actually addressing the issue at hand. If you are anti-abortion, it is only logical for you to support legal abortion as a lesser evil, while being a fervent advocate of sex education, contraception, and the empowerment of women. This is quite possibly the best of the three arguments, as by this logic, people who think abortion is bad and immoral should support legalization. Most people who are against abortion are either uninformed or more interested in spite and criminalizing things they dislike than actually fixing the issue. This is a childish non-solution. These three arguments, particularly the last one, make it overwhelmingly obvious abortion should be legal. This is not to say abortion is morally okay. You can be anti-abortion and support legal abortion, as we have gone over. You can view something as immoral without having to criminalize it, and sometimes this is exactly the right solution. It is very much a lesser evil, until the issue can be addressed more effectively, not by criminalization, but by sex education, readily available contraception, and the empowerment of women.